So hello, good afternoon all. It's a great pleasure being here. It's my first time at Delphi, but we are following up on Delphi Paris. I'm glad to see François and Georgios that we're also back in January in Paris speaking again about energy, and to welcome Kostas on this panel as well. So we were going to talk, the title of this session reflects also the complexity of the energy transition, that it's a mathematical function with lots of variables. And we're going to, I know it's a topic, it's an inexhaustible topic, but we are going to focus on specific aspects, and we're going to have a lively discussion, providing insights and also some answers to these difficult questions that have been raising recently related to energy. And without further ado, I will give the floor to François de Ricolfis, economic counsellor at the French Embassy in Athens. And François, I think he's going to use also some slides that they're going to be very useful, and I think they will provide food for thought and discussion in the following topics that we're going to touch upon. So are we going to, François, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for the Delphi panel. I'm quite pleased to continue the discussion we started in Paris two months ago. I'm pleased to be with two Hellenic leaders of French companies, which is a good spirit of cooperation. It's nice. And I suggest that I will start with an overview of what's happening in Europe, and then focus on Greece and the region. And then I have a few maps to make a few points. The maps are easy to find on the internet. The good thing about energy is you have lots of information on the web. So Europe first. What is working and what should be working better? The first basic thing which is working, and we always forget, is that energy transition is not only on the web, it has succeeded. So these are the few maps. The first one is about fossil production in Europe. So we have a few countries still wedded to fossil fuels, including Germany. But all the Nordic countries have left, and Balkans are in the middle. And France is, well, it's an outlier. I would say a few words about it. Renewable, again, the Nordic countries. Lots of sun in the Nordic countries. Spain, Portugal, makes more sense. Austria, that's water for you. And the next slide is low carbon. And then the picture is different, because France is the odd man out with the nuclear energy. So what we see, if we have lots of choices, choice doesn't mean failure or mistakes. It means that we have different stakes, different resources, different choices. So France, we are lagging behind on wind and solar. Let's be frank, it's only 20% of our power production. We have nuclear. We still will have for a long time. That's a choice. We'll see what happens in the rest of the world. And let's have a few words about Greece and Bulgaria and Romania very soon. So this is one thing which is working, and we tend to forget it, which is a pity. Issue two, why did it succeed? Why did we succeed? Because we have technologies. We have cheap, renewable technology. So we have wind, we have solar. I think we'll soon have batteries. It's a work in progress. Maybe we'll have hydrogen. So the issue is not having technologies, is where do they come from? They all come from China. Maybe there should be an issue, but that's not for today. Transition, third thing, is also a transition in the way the market operates. We had reforms, EU reforms, we had new technologies, so it means we have lots of new companies. So the market is more fragmented than it was 30 years ago, where you had the big monopolies, basically one producer in many countries. So we have lots of companies, all sizes, all technologies. It means more innovation. It means more flexibility to address markets. Well, it also means that life sometimes is complicated for administrations or for companies. But that's a big change. What is not working so well? The first thing which is not working is prices. Sorry, this one first. This is EU versus US. Something is wrong. It was wrong before the crisis in Ukraine. It's worse. So this is something which is bad for our competitiveness. Maybe we should tax the US about it, but we have an issue. And the other issue we have is that there is no single market. This is a snapshot. It was in 2024, not the worst period for prices differences, but you can see the differences. They are from 1 to 4. Doesn't make very much sense. So you have a few expensive countries, cheap countries. Doesn't make any sense. And this is an issue of several factors. It's an issue because the model we have leans heavily on the price of gas. So it's very sensitive to the gas prices. We are sensitive to imported gas because it comes from abroad. So see what's happened when Russia invaded Ukraine. That's one thing. And the other thing is connectivity. The European markets are not well connected. And this makes bottlenecks, makes issues. So let's move on to the neighbors, the 3 countries or the 4 countries, depends if you add Cyprus. Romania. Romania is gas, nuclear, and water. Bulgaria is nuclear and oil. Greece is, I have one nice slide, where is it? Come on. Well, I had the slide. Greece is renewable, lignite, and hydropower, and wants to do more. So we have 3 different countries. They do not connect very well, so it's difficult to sell electricity from one to another. It's improving. Greece sells electricity to Bulgaria. Still it's difficult, and Greece still has the difficulty of selling electricity within the country, if only because Greece is islands. And it's not very easy selling electricity to islands, so you have still islands with local production, which is expensive and polluting. So connectivity. Why is connectivity an issue? Because we forgot about it, because it's not glamorous. So we were all on, let's do energy, but we forgot we need plugs. So that's the issue in Greece, lots of projects. The network is too old, we need to renew it, and in the meantime, plants are not going online. To give one figure, in France, we need to redo our network. It's a budget of 100 billion euros. In Greece, it's between 10 and 15. I still have to see the figure in the Greek budget. We just barely see them in the French budget. So this is the big issue about connectivity. And the last example is Cyprus. Cyprus is relying on oil. It's all alone in the sea. And then you have the GSI project, connectivity to Greece. We'll see if it works. If it works, I hope it is, because there are French companies in it. It will change life. A few last words about what we do with electricity. It's not necessary. We need to produce it. We need to distribute it. We need to measure it. We need to spend it wisely. So let's not forget about energy savings. One example, I was in Moldova a few days ago. In Moldova, half of the bill for heating in buildings goes away in smoke. So they waste half of the bill, which are quite expensive. So let's not forget that regardless of where energy comes from, you need to save it. It's easy, it's not complicated, and it creates a lot of jobs. So I stop there. Thank you, Epistimi.
Thanks a lot, François. You really set the scene. You touched upon lots of burning issues in not only Southeast Europe, but the main thing is indeed member states have completely different energy mixes, connectivity, interconnections. It's a huge issue. Moving on to Kostas Andriosopoulos, Managing Director at Akuo Energy Greece. And as François said, Greece has lots of renewable energy production. And as a renewable energy production company, what are the key challenges that you have faced or you have been facing in Greece? And especially as a non-Greek company, investor, would you say that there are more obstacles to overcome compared to local players?
Well, thank you, first of all, the organizers for the invitation, and thank you for the question. As François painted a little bit the scene, definitely we do see a very strong interest from local and foreign players in the renewable energy sector here in Greece. We have seen a massive interest also in terms of photovoltaic projects that I will speak later on as well. They are indeed creating, let's say, an issue to the grid and to the stability of the market. We have more than 30 gigawatt of pipeline of projects now at this stage at the TSO level where they are waiting for connection. So if I start with the main challenge, connectivity is indeed one of the challenges as described by François. We have an old network that needs a lot of upgrading. Now the private investors are requested to make major investments to upgrade the grid alongside the grid operator, which it can be sometimes also a challenging task to coordinate and agree on what needs to be done. The permitting process as well is something that we have not, unfortunately, left behind us. We have improved over the past few years the regulation and the legislative system so that we can enable faster licensing process, but this is still a major challenge that all RES producers and the network as well has been facing. That being said, battery storage is definitely something that we need to push even more forward. At this stage, we do not have any storage systems in our grid system, and that is creating one of the challenges that also François mentioned before with some negative prices, some curtailment issues that we observe. Hopefully very soon that we will have from next year onwards the first storage systems up and running connected to the grid, we will see some sort of correction in this anomaly in the market that we are observing. The last point of your question, if I may address, as a foreign company representing a French IPP that is operating in more than 30 countries around the world with assets. Recently, we have had some positive announcements and news in the market that we have a French big infrastructure fund entering into our shareholding structure, which gives us a lot of positive momentum in terms of implementing the big portfolio of projects that the capacity to implement the big portfolio of projects that we have here in Greece. What we need to point out is that foreign entities do face some, if I may say, I don't want to say unequal handling from the authorities, but that definitely local players have an edge compared to foreign players, and mostly I would rather say that this is coming to maneuvering bureaucracy in most of the cases, where for some it's easier, for some others is not as easy. That being said, the appetite, the interest from foreign investors, including my company, Akuo Energy, and our new shareholders now, is that we are very positive for the Greek market, both as an economy and because of the improvement that we have shown over the past few years, but also on the renewable energy space. We see a lot of potential for the Greek market after improving some of the anomalies we discussed before and the mishaps in terms of not having yet implemented a great storage penetration in our system. We do see an opportunity for us both on the PV front but also on the wind side.
Great, thanks a lot, Kostas. And connecting the dots, moving on to Georgios, who's a country head for Greece and Cyprus at Hydrogene de France, which actually provides this kind of solutions to the problem of intermittency of renewables and the absence of storage and the huge congestion that we have in the Greek network. Only last year, I think there were months where more than 50% of renewable energy that we were producing had to be curtailed, which means that it was not used at all. So similarly, what are the main challenges that you're facing in Greece currently because you're at the project design development phase? And has it been easy to find off-takers in your case? Because it's a kind of a particular business model.
Thank you, Epistimi. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I will conclude my contribution in this question by speaking of the off-taking, but I will present the company first. Hydrogene de France, HDF Energy for short, is a manufacturer of megawatt-scale fuel cells. Fuel cells is the device enabling the transformation of hydrogen to electricity. Therefore, in the hydrogen economy, we're in the downstream, whereas electrolysis is the upstream and the transport of hydrogen is the midstream sector. Why Greece is important to us? Greece is important to us because strong decarbonization targets, 81% of renewables in the power generation mix by the end of the decade, with complete phase out of lignite fire capacity by the end of the decade, non-introduction of new natural gas-fired assets from 2030 onwards, and the non-introduction of new oil-fired capacity from 2023 already. As we are already at 47%, around half, 50% of renewables in the power generation mix, we believe it is now time for more sophisticated solutions as we move to more, let's say, dominance of renewables in the power generation mix. Nevertheless, as Epistimi mentioned, 228 gigawatt hours curtailed in 2023, 900 gigawatt hours in 2024, 28% of intermittent renewables curtailed in 2023. With 44 gigawatts waiting to connect to the grid of renewable assets, we see that this is an issue that will prevail in coming years. Battery tenders, yes, very, very instrumental in the decarbonization. Nevertheless, they are not very well positioned for intra-season storage, for long-term storage. Number two, they are made in China. And number three, they are difficult to finance from a project finance perspective, as we see from the financiers. Another key point for our positioning in the Greek market is the just transition regions, which are being promoted as modern green and modern innovation ecosystems. To that extent, I would like to announce and give a teaser at this very forum that we are entering into a cooperation with the hydrogen master's degree of the University of Western Macedonia, and it will be officially announced in very few days. So, what we do with the fuel cells? Behind the meter, we developed this solution we call Renewable. Behind the meter, we have a solar PV or a wind asset, an electrolyzer generating hydrogen. We store the hydrogen, and then with the fuel cells, we're able to regenerate electricity as needed. In Western Macedonia, we have a €2 billion portfolio of projects. The most advanced, therefore, we call it Western Macedonia 1. It comprises of 200 megawatt of solar PV, 32 megawatt electrolyzer, 300 megawatt hour of storage, mainly hydrogen, but also a 2-hour lithium battery, and 9 megawatt of fuel cells. With this configuration, we're able to provide 45 megawatt stable, predictable electricity during the day and 9 megawatt electricity during the night. This project will generate 450 jobs maximum in construction phase and 30 jobs during the 25-year operation and maintenance phase. The full portfolio, 5,000 construction jobs and 360 operation and maintenance jobs. Now, to conclude my contribution here, what are the 4 categories for strategic investment in Greece nowadays? Interconnection to islands that are not in the IPTO plan, pilot floating solar and offshore wind, electrolysis, which we do, but it's not the core of our activity, and totally controlled renewable power generation, meaning biomass and biogas, which require feedstock, therefore they're not resilient. Geothermal requires geomorphological inputs, which is not resilient, and the only power-to-power solution like ours is that of concentrated solar thermal. What we're seeking in our discussions with the ministry, which is very interested in hearing a solution, is to gain the eligibility for the tariff of the reference price that the only power-to-power technology currently available in Greece receives since 2016 and 2021 under state aids. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Georgios. It was very detailed. And so let's move on to a very topical issue, and it was mentioned in by all three speakers. So we all mentioned that Greece produces, it has actually an abundance of renewable energy, and yet the electricity prices, the bills that you get at your homes, they're very, very high, and also in the map that François showed, Greece compared to the purchase power, the prices are still remain too high. So what are the main reasons? I would start by with Kostas, and some ideas that, I mean, the ways that these issues could be addressed. It's an EU problem. The maps showed it. It's not only in Greece, but in Greece, because we have this, this privilege to have a lot of wind and sun, what could be done? And I cannot resist merging it with the recent developments on across the pond, because we know that most of the components for renewable energy come from countries that these tariffs will be imposed, like China, Southeast Asia, but also Europe. So an overall comment also how this will affect probably the EU that lacks, as Georgios said, the manufacturing of these technologies as well. So starting with you, Kostas.
Okay, thank you. So energy cost is high and is different in different markets, as we have seen in Europe, because first of all, the connectivity issue is there. We do not have interconnections and infrastructure projects that should accommodate, let's say, the single European energy market that the European Union is envisioning. The Southeast Europe corner is a little bit, if I may say, underdeveloped in terms of infrastructure, which leads then to this lack of connectivity, then to the discrepancy in the pricing structure compared to other more mature markets that they do have other technologies that could be cheaper, as nuclear energy from France, for example, or the greater Benelux area. Solar and wind and the resources that we do have in the country definitely can help. We have seen negative prices. We talked about curtailment, which means that there can be an overproduction certain hours of the day, that this also can sound as a good news. Sometimes it's not that good news for the market itself, the way it operates, but definitely when with storage that I mentioned earlier, that would support taking advantage of all this wasted energy that was discussed earlier, about 900 gigawatt-hours we had last year. Numbers for 2025 probably seem to be higher than this number if we continue with the projection of the quarter that we have seen already. Then the mechanics itself of formulating the price is a little bit is not that fair, if I may say, because what we have is marginal cost pricing. You do have other forms of energy and technologies, like natural gas, for example, that can come in, and we need to match at every single hour, we need to match the most expensive form of energy production. So you can have cheaper forms of energy as a base load, maybe coming from other sources. We have very tiny coal introduction in our system. Most of it can be, then there is a big part of hydro. We do have the rest, which is in a cheaper form, but then we do have natural gas, which comes at a peak. And unfortunately, in Greece, we have from 30 to 40% on a daily basis, even higher in some days, higher introduction of natural gas in the system. And if you add on top of that the CO2 pricing, which is mostly a European phenomenon that we do not see in other global markets, that increases the price. You talked about Trump, you talked about tariffs, and we have seen that, let's say, the bad omen that we do see from reverting from globalization to more localization or more fragmentation into the marketplace, globally speaking. We have seen also prices of energy going down, which can be also a good sign in terms of supporting development and supporting the story that we have discussed just now. We see interest rates as well possibly going down as in the foreseeable future, which could support some of the projects that have been hurt financially speaking recently. So there are some positives and some negatives from all of this equation, from all of this news that we have seen from Trump. And going back to what you said, we need to see if there are sanctions or there are going to be more sanctions toward China, because China is the place that is mostly supplying to us all of the equipment, from Europe, because what we have seen is the US sanctions. So let's see what would be the reaction of Europe in all of this triangle between China, US, and our market.
Thanks a lot. And François?
Yes, not very much to add. Maybe 3 comments. The first, the short one, is the EU, before everything which was happening, was planning to spend lots of money in investment for competitiveness, including energy, and that would include, I guess, connectivity, and I hope that would include the region. Then again, we should be looking at the the other end of the line, that is consumption. And then maybe we can improve things by one, savings, because that's a cheap way to improve things. And then by management, because we still are wedded to very old-fashioned management of the demand. Especially in Greece, you have the very old meters. I think we can improve things by having smart meters, maybe by having a little artificial intelligence to manage household appliances.
And demand response.
So we may or we should need a lot of things in terms of how we manage final demand. It can be done by companies, it should be done by households, and then there is a role for clever, not gadgets, but clever tools and clever IT to help us. So let's look at this too, not only at the production side.
Yeah, I always mention the example in France, like during the energy crisis, when for days my water boiler didn't work and I thought it was a technical problem. It was a smart meter that knew already my patterns and was shutting off my water boiler in the morning. So yeah, it's a very good way of demand response, and I don't know where that stands in Greece. They have been introduced, you know, Georgios, just, perhaps.
I'm not
an expert, but that just came to mind. But your views also on the Greek market and this volatility.
I will give my take from a very different perspective. Imported fossil fuels is always there, is usually the elephant in the room in a spike up in prices. But I believe it's a more structural challenge that I will be addressing. When Ursula von der Leyen visited our project in Barbados to announce the financing from other financiers, but also the European Investment Bank, resilience, technological, and also resilience in technologies that do not have variable costs, such as imported fuel for the provision of services like the one I described earlier, is key. Therefore, in my understanding, in my view, there are three challenges. Resilience of manufacturing supply chains. How did third countries like China dominated the manufacturing capacity in clean tech, such as solar PV and batteries? By receiving feed-in tariffs that were paid by the European taxpayer to get original equipment from these countries. The European Union and European member states have done very well in manufacturing wind turbines, electrolyzers, fuel cells, but not so much in traditional technologies. Number two, human capital skills. There is a skills gap that reskilling, upskilling initiatives tend to address. 1.8 million work within the EU in the clean tech industry. 15% of companies report shortages. This is going to be a growing issue as we enter an aging European workforce. And number three, there are funding mechanisms in Europe, both for CapEx subsidy, such as Innovation Fund, but also in the form of state aids. The solutions for these three topics: continue implementing state aid measures, not only for the production of a manufacturing hub like we did in Bordeaux, but also for the creation of a market through tariffs in the form of contract for difference, for instance, that accelerate the development of a made-in-EU infrastructure market, such as the fuel cell power generation, investment in people, reskilling, upskilling, improving gender balance in the market and promoting STEM careers, and consistent and long-term funding in innovation and made-in-EU technology.
Great. I think we have 4 more minutes. I don't know if you have a last comment, but one question that I always pose, and actually we all, I think, discussed in the energy sector, is how feasible is this energy transition and the targets that have been posed by the EU? Some say that we're over-optimistic. Some say that if we continue having this complex regulatory framework or these ambitious targets, the prices, the import prices for inland or also on land or maritime shipping will be 2 or 3 times higher than now. So is it, I don't know, is Europe going to end up like a thematic park of clean energy that people will be visiting in to see how how these technologies, like how living without coal is, or ultimately we're going to make it by 2030 or 2050. I'm a bit skeptical, but I want to very quickly hear you, because we have 1 minute, just whether you're optimist or pessimist in this regard. Costa?
Well, I think that the energy transition, it works. I mean, it is a vision that we need to embrace, all of us. Cost effectiveness is there, sustainability works with energy transition. Maybe we are a bit more over-optimistic in terms of the targets and how each single country, if we're looking at it from the European perspective, can achieve those targets. Greece is on the forefront because we do have the resource. Some other countries, maybe it's not as easy for them to reach those targets. But at the end of the day, with some rationalization of what we do have in every single country as a system and what we can afford to have, I think we should all target to the ultimate goal, which is to fulfill the net zero targets and achieve the green energy transition at least by the 2050 or even longer, if it is longer targets. Yes.
François?
I think if we add 10 years, it's not a big deal. It will change very fast in any effect. I think the real deal is, can we prevent swapping an old dependency on renewable, on important fuel, to another one? So back to the EU plans, we need more than we did to combine the targets of being clean and whatever, and developing a European industry to do this. So that's the challenge. And the positive, let's see positive things. The positive thing about Trump, maybe it will speed up things in Europe to say, let's reinvent an industry and have people. As you said, we need people.
Thanks a lot, Giorgio. To wrap up.
In the past 30 years, we have seen tremendous progress globally in the penetration of renewables in the power generation mix. Now it's the most, let's say, challenging part as we move towards total decarbonization. It's not only a Europe problem, it's a global problem. Therefore, not only targets and member state targets, but also international cooperation should be put forth for the attainment of these targets. And I'm an optimist, and I'm keeping the hard work to make it happen from my perspective as well.
Great, thanks a lot. Thank you all, and thanks a lot to you as well. So we end up on this optimistic note.